Maya Johnson stepped into the corporate office with a blend of excitement and trepidation swirling in her stomach. The sun bathed the modern glass building in golden light, reflecting her hopes for a fresh start. She smoothed her pencil skirt and adjusted her blazer, taking a deep breath as she prepared to navigate the unfamiliar landscape of her new workplace. As she walked past the reception desk, she caught the eye of the receptionist, who offered a polite smile. Maya smiled back, her heart racing with anticipation. However, as she made her way to her desk, she noticed the subtle glances exchanged between her colleagues. A group of three, including Sarah, a sharp-featured woman with an air of ambition, whispered quietly, their eyes darting in Maya's direction. Mark, a tall man with an aloof demeanor, leaned against the wall, arms crossed, observing the scene with a furrowed brow. Maya felt the weight of their scrutiny, but pushed the sensation aside. Today was about new beginnings, and she was determined not to let their judgment overshadow her enthusiasm. "Hey, I'm Maya, the new hire in marketing." She introduced herself to a couple of co-workers, forcing a smile as she extended her hand. "Nice to meet you," one of them replied, though the lack of warmth in their tone made Maya's smile falter slightly. She noted the dismissive glances, but she refused to let their indifference cloud her ambition. As the morning progressed, Maya settled into her role, quickly soaking in the dynamics of the office. She observed how Sarah dominated conversations, her voice confident and commanding, while Mark contributed only when it suited him. The office buzzed with a mix of chatter and typing, but Maya felt a strange silence directed her way. It was as if her presence stirred an undercurrent of skepticism. At noon, a team meeting was scheduled. Maya's heart raced as she gathered her thoughts, eager to share her ideas. She had spent countless nights preparing for this moment, combing through market trends and analyzing potential strategies. As everyone took their seats around the conference table, Maya noticed Sarah's poised demeanor and Mark's nonchalant posture. They seemed to exude an air of superiority that only fueled her determination. "Let's hear from Maya," their manager Tom said, gesturing for her to speak. The room shifted, and Maya felt the eyes of her colleagues on her, some with intrigue, others with skepticism. Maya cleared her throat, her heart pounding as she shared her innovative ideas. "I believe we should consider a more diverse marketing strategy that appeals to a broader audience. Incorporating social media influencers could expand our reach significantly." As she spoke, she caught a flicker of interest in Tom's eyes, but noticed Sarah tapping her pen impatiently. "That's interesting, Maya," Sarah interjected, her voice dripping with condescension. "But I think we should focus on our existing demographic. We don't want to overextend ourselves, do we?" Maya's enthusiasm waned, but she pressed on. "I understand that, Sarah, but the market is evolving, and we should adapt to stay competitive." The meeting continued, and as Maya finished her thoughts, she felt a mixture of hope and disappointment. Sarah quickly pivoted the conversation, redirecting it back to her own ideas. It was a familiar maneuver, and Maya felt the sting of being overshadowed. She clenched her fists under the table, vowing not to let this setback deter her. After a grueling week filled with unnoticed contributions and veiled whispers, Maya found solace in a coffee shop with David, her friend and mentor. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped her as she sank into a plush chair, feeling the weight of the week lift slightly. David, with his warm smile and understanding eyes, sensed her frustration immediately. "Maya, how's the new job treating you?" he asked, leaning forward, genuinely interested. "It's challenging," she admitted, her voice tinged with weariness. "I feel like my ideas are being ignored, and Sarah just swoops in to take credit for them." David nodded, his expression turning serious. "I've seen this happen before. It's frustrating, but don't let them diminish your worth. You're talented, and you have a voice that deserves to be heard." Maya sighed, feeling the heat of determination surge within her. "I want to prove them wrong. I won't let their biases define my career." "Good," David replied, his tone encouraging. "Stay resilient, and remember why you started this journey. You have the power to break through those barriers." As they spoke, Maya felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. She was determined to rise above the dismissive attitudes of her colleagues. ready to confront the challenges ahead with renewed vigor. The road would be tough, but with her talent and David's support, she felt prepared to face whatever lay ahead in her corporate journey. Maya Johnson sat at her kitchen table, the soft glow of her laptop illuminating her determined expression. The bustling city outside her window faded into the background as she immersed herself in the materials for the leadership training program she had enrolled in. Each page she flipped through felt like a step toward reclaiming her narrative, a way to reshape the perception her colleagues held of her. She had spent the last few weeks dedicating her evenings to this program, poring over leadership theories, case studies, and practical exercises. The more she learned, the more empowered she felt. "Why should I let them define me?" she murmured to herself, closing one of her textbooks with a sense of finality. The disdain she encountered at work would not dictate her future. Days turned into weeks, and as the training progressed, Maya's confidence grew exponentially. She found herself not only absorbing knowledge, but also applying it in her daily interactions at the office. During team meetings, she began to speak up with clarity and conviction, asserting her ideas with a newfound authority. Her managers soon took notice, impressed by the transformation. Maya had become a beacon of insight and innovation, challenging the status quo with her fresh perspectives. One afternoon, after a particularly engaging session on strategic leadership, Maya received an email that sent adrenaline coursing through her veins. It was from her manager, inviting her to discuss her performance in the training program. The excitement bubbled within her as she prepared for the meeting, rehearsing her points and envisioning her success. When the day arrived, she walked into her manager's office with her head held high. The room was filled with a sense of anticipation, and Maya could feel the weight of her hard work hanging in the air. Her manager, Linda, greeted her with a warm smile and gestured for her to sit down. "Maya, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge your performance in the leadership program," Linda began, her tone sincere. "You've shown tremendous growth and innovation. We believe you are ready for more responsibility." Maya's heart raced. "Thank you, Linda. I've really worked hard to apply what I've learned," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Linda leaned forward, her expression earnest. "We're promoting you to a team lead position. I believe you'll bring a fresh perspective and drive our projects in a new direction." Stunned, Maya felt a rush of emotions. "Really? Thank you. This means so much to me." As she left the meeting, the reality of her promotion began to sink in. Yet, as she walked back to her desk, she couldn't shake the feeling that not everyone would be pleased with this development. Sure enough, the moment she entered the open office space, she caught sight of Sarah's scowl from across the room. Sarah was leaning against her desk, arms crossed, her expression a mix of disbelief and indignation. "Congratulations, Maya. I guess hard work really does pay off," Sarah said sarcastically, her voice dripping with disdain. Maya met Sarah's gaze with unwavering confidence. "Thank you, Sarah. I look forward to leading our team." The tension was palpable, and Maya could sense the irritation radiating from her colleagues. Mark, who had been sitting nearby, whispered something to Sarah, eliciting a sharp laugh from her. Maya took a deep breath, refusing to let their negativity dampen her spirits. She had earned this position, and she would not allow their jealousy to undermine her success. Later that week, the company organized a team outing, a casual get-together meant to celebrate recent accomplishments. Maya arrived, dressed in a vibrant yellow dress that mirrored her mood, a mixture of excitement and trepidation. As she mingled with colleagues, she could feel the weight of their glances, the whispers that followed her like shadows. "Look who decided to grace us with her presence," Sarah called out, her voice laced with mockery as she approached Maya with a group of onlookers. "Feeling important now that you've got a fancy title?" Maya squared her shoulders, refusing to flinch. "I'm here to celebrate our team's success, Sarah. It's a good day for all of us." "Isn't it just?" Sarah replied, rolling her eyes. "Just remember, titles don't mean anything if you can't deliver results." Maya took a step closer, her voice calm but firm. "I intend to deliver, and you'll see that I'm more than capable of leading this team." The surrounding colleagues fell silent, their gazes flickering between the two women. Maya felt a surge of empowerment swell within her. This was her moment to stand her ground, to demonstrate that she would not be intimidated. "Good luck with that," Sarah sneered, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. As Sarah walked away, Maya realized that this confrontation marked a turning point. She had faced down her adversary, and instead of retreating, she had stood tall. It was a small victory, but it solidified her resolve. Maya was not just a participant in this corporate landscape. She was shaping her own narrative and dismantling the barriers that sought to hold her back. As Maya Johnson settled into her newfound role in the corporate landscape, the air grew thick with tension. The whispers behind her back intensified, particularly from Mark and Sarah, who seemed to escalate their efforts to undermine her at every turn. In the break room, she overheard snippets of conversation that made her stomach churn. "I don't know how she got that promotion. It must be some sort of diversity quota," Sarah sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. Mark leaned against the counter, arms crossed, a smirk on his face. "Yeah, it's embarrassing. She's just not cut out for this. Just wait, she'll fail soon enough." Maya's heart raced as she pretended to be engrossed in her phone, but their remarks stung. She felt the weight of their scrutiny, yet she refused to let it consume her. Instead, she took a deep breath and resolved to rise above their toxic comments. She had fought too hard to let their jealousy derail her ambitions. In the weeks that followed, Maya discovered an unexpected talent for networking. Despite the hostility, she began to form alliances with senior leaders who recognized her potential. During one of her lunches with David, her mentor, she shared her newfound strategy. "Networking isn't just about schmoozing, Maya. It's about building relationships," David advised, his eyes sparkling with encouragement. "You have the skills. Now you just need to make sure the right people see them." Maya took his words to heart. She started attending company events and conferences, engaging in meaningful conversations that showcased her expertise. At a recent industry seminar, she had the chance to connect with Laura, a vice president who had built a reputation for championing diversity in her teams. "Your insights during the panel were refreshing," Laura had said, her tone warm and inviting. "I'd love to discuss some of your ideas further. Let's grab coffee next week." Maya could hardly contain her excitement. This could be the breakthrough she needed. As she sipped her coffee in the cozy cafe, she and Laura delved into discussions about innovative projects and inclusive leadership strategies. Laura's support felt like a beacon of hope in Maya's challenging environment. Meanwhile, the whispers from Mark and Sarah did not cease. They increased in volume, with Sarah even going so far as to suggest to others that Maya was merely lucky. "If you ask me, she's just riding the wave of the latest corporate trend. It won't last," Sarah scoffed, rolling her eyes. Maya was aware of their tactics, but chose not to engage. Instead, she poured her energy into a high-stakes project that had landed on her desk, a chance to lead a team tasked with developing a new client strategy. This was her moment to shine, to demonstrate her skills to everyone who had doubted her. Late nights became routine as Maya immersed herself in research, analysis, and brainstorming sessions. She was determined to exceed expectations. One evening, as she meticulously crafted her presentation, her phone buzzed with a message from Laura. "Let's schedule a time to review your project. I want to make sure you're prepared for the upcoming meeting," Laura texted, her enthusiasm palpable even through the screen. Maya felt a surge of gratitude. "Thank you, Laura. I'd love that," she replied, her fingers dancing over the keyboard. As the project deadline approached, Maya's confidence grew. She gathered her team for a final run-through of the presentation. The room buzzed with excitement, and Maya felt their energy lift her spirits. "Remember, we're not just presenting ideas. We're showcasing our vision for the future," she declared, her voice steady. "Absolutely, Maya. We've got this," one of her team members responded, his enthusiasm infectious. Yet, lurking in the shadows were Mark and Sarah, plotting their next move. They exchanged glances as they overheard the team's excitement, their expressions a mix of disdain and jealousy. Sarah leaned closer to Mark, whispering, "We need to do something before she pulls this off. She can't be allowed to succeed." Maya remained blissfully unaware of their scheming. As she finalized her slides, she envisioned the impact her work could have not just for her career, but for the entire company. She was determined to prove that she belonged, that her voice mattered. And as she drifted off to sleep that night, she dreamed of standing confidently in front of the executives, ready to present her hard-earned work. Maya sat at her desk, the hum of the office around her feeling more oppressive than usual. The deadline for her high-stakes project loomed just days away, and the weight of expectation was palpable. She had invested countless hours into this presentation, pouring her heart and soul into crafting a proposal that would showcase her capabilities and perhaps even silence the whispers behind her back. But as she meticulously reviewed her data one last time, a cold wave of dread washed over her. The numbers didn't add up. Panic surged as she scoured through her files, cross-referencing spreadsheets and reports. A knot twisted in her stomach when she realized that critical data had been tampered with. It was subtle, yet significant enough to undermine her entire project. Her heart raced as she considered the implications. Could Mark and Sarah really stoop so low? It was a question that lingered in her mind, a bitter taste that soured her hard work. "Maya, you okay?" David's voice broke through her focus, and she looked up to find him leaning against the doorframe, concern etched across his face. "No, David, I'm not okay," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I think someone has messed with my data. It feels intentional." David's brow furrowed, and he stepped into her office, closing the door behind him. "Have you talked to anyone about it?" "No, not yet. I'm not sure who to trust," she confessed, running a hand through her hair in frustration. "I need proof before I make any accusations." "Let's figure this out together," David offered, his tone steadying her racing thoughts. "What's your plan?" Maya took a deep breath, her mind racing through the possibilities. "I'll start by checking version histories on all the files. If someone has altered anything, there should be a record of it. I'll work late tonight. Do you want me to stay?" David asked, his loyalty unwavering. "No, I need to do this alone," she insisted, her determination hardening. "But thank you. I'll keep you posted." As the office emptied, the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting a sterile glow in the quiet space. Maya felt the familiar isolation creep in, but she pushed it aside. Fueled by ambition and a fierce desire to prove her worth, she dove into her work. Hours melted away as she scrutinized every file, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Finally, as the clock ticked toward midnight, a breakthrough emerged. Hidden in the version history of a specific spreadsheet, she found evidence of unauthorized changes, data points altered and key figures manipulated. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her veins. She had what she needed to defend her work, but now the challenge was to ensure it wouldn't happen again. The day of the presentation dawned bright and unforgiving. Maya felt a mix of excitement and trepidation as she stood in front of the boardroom, her colleagues seated expectantly. She took a moment to center herself, recalling David's encouraging words. She was prepared to showcase her hard work and resilience, ready to defy the doubts that had plagued her. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today," Maya began, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. She launched into her presentation, weaving a narrative that not only highlighted her project's merits, but also illustrated her unique perspective and insights. The room was captivated, and she could see nods of approval from some of the executives. However, as she reached the Q&A portion, tension began to mount. Sarah's hand shot up, a sly smile playing on her lips. "Maya, can you explain the discrepancies in your data? Some of us have noticed that a few figures seem inconsistent." Maya's heart sank for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "Actually, Sarah, I've addressed those discrepancies in my report," she replied, maintaining eye contact. "If you look at the appendix, you will see a detailed breakdown of the data sources and the adjustments made." Mark chimed in, a condescending tone lacing his words. "But how can we be sure that the adjustments were legitimate? I mean, it's not like you have the most experience handling these kinds of analyses." Maya felt a rush of indignation, but held her ground. "I appreciate your concerns, Mark, but I have documented every change and can provide the version history as evidence. I take integrity in my work very seriously." The room fell silent for a brief moment, the tension palpable. Maya could sense the executive shifting, intrigued by her confidence and the unfolding confrontation. She had anticipated this moment, and the evidence of tampering loomed over Sarah and Mark like a shadow. As the questioning continued, Maya's heart raced, but her determination only grew stronger. She was ready to fight for her place, not just in that room, but within the company's hierarchy, battling the biases that had plagued her from the very start. Maya stood at the front of the conference room, her heart racing, but her composure unshaken. The atmosphere was thick with tension as she faced the panel of executives, Sarah and Mark sitting at the back, their expressions a mix of disdain and disbelief. After delivering her presentation with a confidence she had fought hard to cultivate, Maya was prepared to defend her work against the predictable onslaught from her colleagues. "While I appreciate your concerns, Mark," she began, her voice steady, "the data I presented clearly supports our strategy moving forward. I have the figures here to demonstrate the projected growth." She gestured to the screen, pulling up a detailed graph that showcased her analysis. The executives leaned forward, eyes flickering between Maya and the screen, while whispers of approval began to ripple through the room. "Your interpretation is flawed, Maya," Sarah interjected, feigning a calmness that felt insincere. "You've overlooked some key metrics that could jeopardize the outcomes." Maya met Sarah's gaze, refusing to be intimidated. "Actually, I accounted for those metrics. I've included a comprehensive overview in the appendix of my report. If you'd like, I can walk you through it right now." Her challenge hung in the air, and for a moment, the room was silent, the executives weighing the potential fallout of siding with Maya over the more senior Sarah. As Maya continued to address each of their concerns with poise, she felt a surge of energy. Each rebuttal from Sarah and Mark was met with solid evidence and clarity, and slowly, the executive's skepticism began to wane. "I think it's important to recognize the innovation behind Maya's approach." One of the executives finally spoke up, nodding in agreement. "This could be a game changer for our department." Maya's heart swelled with pride as she absorbed the moment. She could see Mark's jaw clenching in frustration, while Sarah's smile faded into a tight line. It was a small victory, but one that felt monumental in her journey. Once the presentation concluded, Maya was met with applause from the executives, who expressed their appreciation for her insights. As she exited the conference room, however, she could feel the weight of Sarah and Mark's glares on her back. Their disdain was palpable, a reminder that while she had gained ground, the battle was far from over. "Nice job in there, Maya," David said, catching her in the hallway. He beamed with pride, and for a moment, the world outside the corporate walls faded. "You really turned the tide." "Thanks, David. I just hope it sticks," she replied, her smile wavering slightly. The relief of the moment was quickly eclipsed by the knowledge that Sarah and Mark would not take this lightly. Later that afternoon, as Maya settled at her desk, she noticed a ping in her inbox. It was an email from an unknown source, the subject line simply reading, "For your eyes only." She hesitated before opening it, her curiosity piqued. Inside, she found a series of forwarded emails between Sarah and Mark, their words laced with contempt for her success. "Can you believe they gave that project to her?" One email read, "We can't let her get away with this. She's not one of us." Maya's pulse quickened as she scrolled through the messages, her heart sinking at the blatant plotting against her. "We need to undermine her at every opportunity. If she thinks she's safe now, she's sorely mistaken," another email concluded. Maya felt a surge of anger mixed with determination. This was the evidence she needed to confront the toxic environment that had plagued her since her first day. She saved the emails to her drive, her mind racing with plans on how to use this information. As she prepared to leave the office that evening, Maya held her head high, a newfound resolve coursing through her veins. This was not just about her career anymore. It was about dismantling the barriers that had stifled her and others like her. She knew she had the power to shine a light on the darkness that lingered in the corners of the office, and armed with the truth, she was ready to take action. Maya Johnson stood in the boardroom, her heart racing as she prepared to confront her superiors with the evidence she had meticulously gathered against Sarah and Mark. The air was thick with tension, and she could feel the weight of their dismissive attitudes pressing down on her shoulders. She straightened her blouse, adjusted her glasses, and took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. The executives seated around the long, sleek table exchanged glances, curiosity etched on their faces. "I have evidence regarding the toxic environment that has been perpetuated by Sarah and Mark. It's imperative that I share this with you today." With a determined flick of her wrist, Maya placed her laptop on the table and projected the emails onto the screen. The subject lines were damning, laden with derogatory remarks and schemes to undermine her work. As the executives leaned in, reading the emails, their expressions shifted from curiosity to disbelief. "Look at this." Maya pointed to a particularly damaging exchange. "This email details their plan to intentionally sabotage my project by tampering with critical data. It's not just unprofessional, it's discriminatory." The room fell silent as the weight of her words settled. She could see the shock in the eyes of her manager, who had always touted a commitment to diversity and inclusivity. "Maya, I had no idea," he stammered, glancing nervously at the others. "It's not just about me," she pressed on. "This behavior has fostered a hostile work environment for many. If we are to truly be a company that values its employees, we must address these issues head-on." Just then, Sarah burst into the room, her face flushed. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her voice dripping with feigned innocence. Maya couldn't help but notice the tremor in Sarah's hands. She was rattled. "Maya is presenting evidence of your misconduct, Sarah," an executive replied, his tone firm. "These emails do not paint a picture of a team player." Sarah's eyes widened, and she opened her mouth to retort, but no words came out. Instead, she faltered, looking around the room for support that wasn't there. "You can't be serious," she finally managed. "This is just a misunderstanding." Before anyone could respond, Mark entered, catching the tail end of the confrontation. "What's happening?" he asked, confusion written all over his face. "Maya is accusing us of sabotaging her work," Sarah spat, desperation lacing her tone. "And we have evidence," Maya interjected, pointing to the screen. "Your attempts to undermine me are documented here. It's time for accountability." As the executives absorbed the information, murmurs erupted. Maya felt a mix of triumph and trepidation. She had fought so hard, and now the moment she had envisioned was unfolding before her. A senior executive cleared his throat, bringing the room back to focus. "Thank you, Maya, for bringing this to our attention. We take these allegations seriously. Sarah, Mark, we will need to investigate this matter further." Days later, the decision came down. Maya sat in her office, her heart pounding as she read the email announcing the outcome. Sarah was terminated, her history of discrimination complaints coming back to haunt her. Mark was put on probation and required to attend sensitivity training. A sense of relief washed over Maya, but it was quickly replaced by a realization of the responsibility now placed on her shoulders. She had fought against the tide and emerged victorious, but the battle for equity and respect in the workplace was far from over. Weeks passed, and the company culture began to shift. New initiatives focused on diversity and inclusion were implemented, and Maya found herself at the helm of these changes. She was promoted to a senior leadership position, a role that allowed her to influence the direction of the company positively. Standing in her new office, she gazed out the window, reflecting on her journey. The struggles she had faced had shaped her resilience and determination. She vowed to foster an inclusive environment where everyone felt valued and heard. No one else should have to endure what she did. From that day forward, Maya Johnson became a beacon of hope within the corporate landscape, championing a culture of respect and empowerment for all.